The only time I've really been exposed to that in like in jujitsu, like live instruction, is Danny.
Me.
It's not you.
I'm Justin Lesko, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt and former pro MMA fighter.
And I'm Mike Callahan, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt and a law enforcement officer.
You know, I was reminded of one of my favorite quotes the other day from a great American, the late, great Jimmy Dugan. It's supposed to be hard. If it wasn't hard, everyone would do it. The hard is what makes it great. And I started to think about how much that quote applies to jiu-jitsu.
So, Jimmy Dugan, are we talking about a league of their own? Jimmy Dugan? Did you just... we're calling him an American hero, a great American?
Yeah, I mean, spoiler alert from a movie from 30 years ago, but Jimmy Dugan single-handedly ended World War II.
Yeah, I don't think you really caught the point of that movie. But yeah, jiu-jitsu is really, really hard.
And that's part of why we love it. But you know it's not hard? Deciding to upgrade your life and your jiu-jitsu closet by checking out Epic Roll.
So jiu-jitsu is a lot easier when you look good. If you go to Epic Roll, I don't know if you're going to be able to look as good as me, but maybe you look as good as Justin. Anything you guys need, they have for you over there. Gis, rash guards, shorts, shirts, joggers. They got anything you need. You can check them out at epicrollbjj.com.
And when you use the coupon code podcast15, you can get a 15% discount on your order. You can follow Epic Roll on the gram as well at epicrollbjj. And like Mike said, check out epicrollbjj.com and use the coupon code podcast15 to pick up everything you need for jiu-jitsu and make it a little bit easier.
Now let's take a look at the difficult side of jiu-jitsu. Welcome to that Jiu-Jitsu podcast.
I was thinking about this because A League of Their Own was on TV like it is every weekend.
Evelyn, you're still missing the cutoff, man. Now that's something I'd like you to work on before next season.
Such a good movie.
Man.
But yeah, I happened to turn it on as the commercial break was ending and Jimmy Dugan said the line about things being hard. And jiu-jitsu is really, really hard, but I think the fact that it's hard and the fact that it separates normal people from crazy people, I think that is part of why we like it. But there are some things about jiu-jitsu that make it extra hard. So I thought maybe we could look at some tonight.
I'm on board with that. It's funny that you say it separates us, like normal people, from crazy people, because there's only, like, I think all combat sports like kind of have that moniker, but when you think of it, it's like grappling, wrestling, you know, you get that kind of...
You're like, people know what wrestling is. People know what boxing is. People know like what those sports are. Some people know what MMA is, but like it's kind of like wrestling, but not really. Like that's one of the things that's on my list about things that are hard about jiu-jitsu is trying to explain to your friends and family who don't train jiu-jitsu what jiu-jitsu is and have them not call it karate. Because jiu-jitsu is not karate. Karate sucks. Don't at me. At Mike.
Don't do that either.
But yeah, trying to communicate to the civilian, I guess we can say, what you're doing 3 or 4 times a week when you're trying to murder your friends can be a little tough. Do you think that part of why so many people quit as white belts is because they can't get the rest of their friends and family to understand what they're doing and they give them a hard time about it?
I don't know about that. I mean, like, people take a lot of shit for jiu-jitsu. You know, like the pajama wrestling, or you're going to go roll around with guys, like shit like that. Like, there's a lot of remarks that come your way. But, I don't know.
Do you think more people quit jiu-jitsu as white belts or as blue belts? Because now you get like the blue belt blues, and a lot of people get their blue belt and stop training. Do you think more people quit as white belts or as blue belts?
Probably white belts.
Yeah,
I would
that's
think
what I was
probably
thinking too.
right. I mean, like, while it isn't uncommon for like the blue belt blues and like people to like quit, and like I just think that if we're looking at like all across the world, all the people who have ever taken a jiu-jitsu class. And like, yeah, I think that the number of white belts who have quit is far greater than the number of blue belts.
You know, jiu-jitsu, it, like we always say, everyone always says like jiu-jitsu is for everyone, and it can be for everyone, but some people just don't like it, and some people don't click with it right away, and some people don't enjoy trying to strangle their friends for fun. It's just not for their personality. So it can be hard if you're a brand new person coming in and you don't know what jiu-jitsu is or what to expect, and you're thrown right into, here, this guy's going to try to strangle you, don't let him. It's just not for everyone.
I agree.
I think too, a lot of people who they want to use jiu-jitsu for fitness because they're tired of just going to the gym and the treadmill and the Stairmaster.
Yeah.
I think that it can be tough because jiu-jitsu, you need to have at least one partner. You can only train jiu-jitsu when there's a class happening and other people are training with you. Going to the gym and lifting weights, or going to the gym and walking up the Stairmaster, it's more convenient for most people in their lives. You can just go whenever you have the free time. Jiu-jitsu doesn't afford that flexibility.
I think too, like, to kind of elaborate on that a little bit, I think that there's a misconception that kind of surrounds jiu-jitsu, and maybe the intensity isn't what people are looking for. So people who show up for just, you know, the fitness aspect of it, and maybe not to become proficient in jiu-jitsu, are a little taken back by the intensity of it and what it actually entails. So maybe a little bit more difficult than they were expecting when they find out that, oh, we're actually going to like pretend to kill each other here.
Right, right. And I think it works on the opposite side too, where people who think they're in really good shape, they think that they're super fit, they come in to train, and jiu-jitsu is just a different level of cardio. It's just, and we're going to talk about the physical hard parts of jiu-jitsu in a few minutes, but they think like, oh, I'm really good, I'm really in shape, I'm going to be good at this. And it hits them hard that this is a different level of being in shape. And people don't want to be confronted with the fact that they're not as in shape as they thought they were, especially if they've worked really hard to be in shape.
It's a different monster. And you see videos of it all the time, of bodybuilders or strongmen coming in and going up against average sized people and just getting fucking worked. The skill set that's involved, the cardio that's needed to be very good at it. I actually was watching this video that Pedigo Submission Fighting put out on their YouTube page today, and it was just kind of like a clip into their next video. It's like coming soon, and it was Heath Pedigo talking at a camp that they're running, and apparently these camps are like crazy intense. It's not like one of those like globetrotter camps where everybody just goes and, like, you know, you hang out and you train and do, you know, and it's fun, like, don't get me wrong, like, but these are like competition camps that he runs. And like, somebody posted a picture on Instagram or something last week, and people were fucking throwing up in the bathroom and they weren't prepared for it. But anyway, in this video, he's talking about how you need to be able, if you're going to be competitive, you need to be able to compete at like this high of a pace. And he was speaking to the pace that he was pushing them at for like 6 or 7 rounds. He's like, you need to be able to do this for 7 rounds if you want to win a PANS or a world's title. Like, you need to have cardio that is off the charts. You know, and cardio that's only, you know, matched in, you know, in wrestling or in MMA. Like, you need that kind of cardio. It's not just because you can go out and run a marathon in X amount of time. It's not the same. You know, it's a whole different monster.
Speaking of marathons, I'm shooting for 3 hours 30 minutes for the Disney Marathon. That's what I'm shooting for. But
okay, I'm sorry I even mentioned the word marathon. I'm sorry. I train myself. I walk around, and every time I say broken bone or marathon, I shock myself. Because
it's not working.
It's not. Another like mental hurdle is the consistent beatings that people get when they first start. Even if it's like, if you have somebody who's coming in off the street and take take wrestlers out of the mix, right? So if you just have an average guy coming in off the street and he's a white belt, and then you have another white belt who's in there training for 6 months, that 6 months is an enormous advantage, you know? So even when you first start, like, you're getting the shit kicked out of you by everybody. And that could be really tough on some people. It could really wear some people down.
That's a big ego killer when you're coming in and you're brand new, you're bottom of the food chain, and you're going to get beat. Like, if you're side note, if you're walking into a school and you're a brand new white belt and they're just thrashing you on day one and all the upper belts are like whipping the shit out of you, you're probably not at a great school. But if you walk into a place, white belts who've been training for a few months are going to look at you as the brand new person, as like, this is the guy I can beat, and they're going to come at you hard, and that's how it's going to be. But to have to face the fact that I'm probably going to get tapped a lot in the beginning, like, I'm going to use the analogy a couple times tonight of other sports, but if it was like, hey, I want to pick up playing basketball, and you go to play basketball and it's like, hey, you're going to lose every game for like 6 months to a year. That would be difficult to keep coming back and playing, even though it doesn't matter, even though winning or losing doesn't matter. It can be tough, man. It can be tough mentally. So I'm not surprised that people don't stick with it when they're getting beat consistently like that.
Normally, competition is an accurate gauge of your progress, right? So it's like, how are you progressing? So, these new people have to focus on, small victories. And what I mean by that is maybe improving their defense, improving their positioning before they're expecting to go in there and start winning, start submitting people and start winning rounds. It can be extremely difficult. And even like, I've walked into places as a brown belt, and I've been pushed to the brink by blue belts and purple belts. Like, there's just different, like, styles make matchups, and once you're not a white belt anymore, like, you don't escape that. Like, there's, you're gonna walk into gyms that aren't your home gym, and you're gonna get pushed to the brink sometimes, and belts don't matter.
Well, speaking of belts, I kind of touched on it. One of the biggest like memes almost in jiu-jitsu is the blue belt blues, and people get their blue belt and just kind of disappear. And I get it though. Like, I understand, because it can be hard. It can be difficult when you get promoted to blue belt, you went from being the best white belt, because the worst white belt is literally a brand new person who knows nothing. You might be a white belt for a year, and you can be the best white belt, and you can win all these tournaments as white belt. When you go to blue belt, you could now be going against guys who've been blue belts for 2-3 years.
Yeah.
So you could be a guy who's a blue belt and you've been training for 1 year, and you go to the tournament, and the guy you're competing against who's a blue belt has been competing in total for 4 years, and you're right back to getting beat. So that up and down of belt promotions, the first time that happens to you when you get your blue belt, that can be really hard mentally too, where you're back to, I'm losing all these tournaments because guys are much better than me just because they have more time on the mat. So that aspect of blue belt blues, like, I get it.
Compete at every belt level. That's just us. Compete at every belt level. As soon as you get your blue belt, start competing at blue belt. It's another way to gauge your progress. It's another way to see how good you're getting, right? Because you can consistently gauge your progress by competing. So it's a public service announcement from your favorite jiu-jitsu podcast.
I think that a lot of people, when you get to blue belt, you start to realize you start to know the things you don't know, and you can start to see how much longer the journey is, and that blue belt isn't the end. And I think a lot of people, once they get to blue belt, realize, okay, I've made my beginner gains. I've gotten as good as I can get with the amount of time I'm putting on the mat. But now, if I want to accelerate my game and I want to get better, I need even more of a time commitment, and people don't always have that time to commit. So I think it goes in a lot of people's heads. People think like, if I can't commit more to get that much better, I'm just not going to go at all. And I think they've not told me, but I think that people I know who have quit at blue belt, that has played a factor in it.
Right, I agree.
Once you get to blue belt, you also have probably had a jiu-jitsu injury, because the injury rate in jiu-jitsu is 100%. You're going to have an injury in jiu-jitsu, and that obviously is going to deter a lot of people from training.
Yeah, there's no way around it. Even if you're doing it as just a hobby, even if you're in your mind doing it at a lower intensity, if you're not on some type of comp team, if you're not, if your training's not geared towards competitions, it doesn't matter. You're going to get hurt. You're going to get hurt. There's no, like Justin said, there is no way around it, and it's going to be, tears, pulls, broken bones, whatever. You're going to get hurt.
Yeah, and I'm not saying everyone's going to get like a devastating injury, but you're going to get bumps and bruises and scrapes, and you're going to jam a finger and pull a finger, and you're going to have sore joints, and like it just comes with the territory. And jiu-jitsu is really physically demanding and physically hard. If you want to be good at jiu-jitsu, you have to have a certain level of athleticism. You have to have really good cardio. You have to have good muscular endurance. You have to have good strength. You have to be explosive. And those are all physically demanding things that takes its toll on you. And it can be very difficult to show up day after day after day, knowing the physical exertion you're going to have to put out to do jiu-jitsu at a high level. I like these episodes when you agree with me a lot.
Well, I mean, like, that's just common sense. I mean, if you're going to train, you're going to have, like, and we've said this before on here, like, if you tear your ACL or you dislocate your shoulder or you get a gnarly concussion, like, if you get your bell rung, like, there's certain injuries that you're not going to be able to push through, and it's not smart to push through. Like, you want to give your body time to heal so you can continue to train, down the road. But absent that, like, you're going to encounter some injuries, whether it's, I don't know, like Justin said, bumps, bruises, jammed fingers, shit like that. Like, that's never going to end. Just train through it. Just, if you can, tape it up and train through it. But the serious injuries, yeah, you're gonna have to take some time.
Jiu-jitsu, I can't think of any other hobby or anything that people do just for fun that is as physically demanding. If you want to play other sports and you want to do other things, like we talked about it a few minutes ago, people who are in really good shape, jiu-jitsu pushes their cardio to the max. Like, no matter what sport you do, when you come in and do jiu-jitsu, it's going to take its toll on you. And I can't think of any other sport that an average Joe signs up to do for fun that is that demanding. I've played a lot of sports in my life, and I've never had cardio issues or cardio difficulties until I started doing jiu-jitsu. So when you add in, all sports need strength, all sports need speed, all sports need explosive athleticism. When you add in how draining jiu-jitsu is, it's head and shoulders above every other sport.
It's a lot. It takes its toll on you. It takes its toll on you physically, mentally. It's a lot. We're crazy for training it, but the mental aspect, I think, is a little bit is overlooked sometimes. And what I mean by that is everybody kind of has a game, and when you're playing your game one way or the other, and people start to figure it out. This is nothing new. It's like jiu-jitsu, like a chess match. So it's consistently trying to find new and innovative techniques to counter the techniques that people are trying to find to counter your original techniques. It's just like it's like a perpetual cycle. and it's a lot. Like, I mean, it is a lot to take in. If you watch some of these not documentaries, if you watch some of these instructionals that are put out on BJJ Fanatics, or even Jiu Jitsu, what is that, Jiu Jitsu X, that library
Yeah.
that they that
Yep. Keenan's technique library. And
some of these instructors, the way that their minds work, it's crazy. The only time I've really been exposed to that in like in jiu-jitsu, like live instruction, is Danny
me.
Meyer. It's not you. And like, it's just, everything is so detailed, and there's an explanation that goes, he can pick apart your game, like, down to the it's crazy. It's crazy to see people like that work, and to see him train, and to see him, just to hear him talk about jujitsu. It's just, they're on another level. So, but for normal people, and like, just from, like, for hobbyists, or people who aren't training to win world championships, like, it could be draining. It could be a draining task mentally to try and just process all these techniques and these concepts and everything.
Yeah, I mean, once you get past the point of you're just trying to learn the fundamentals, or fundies, as we like to call them, you are playing a chess game, and you're thinking the entire time, all right, if I do this, he's going to do that. So I'm going to do this so he does that, so I can do this other thing off of him doing that. And you're thinking a move ahead, a counter to his counter to your counter. And you're thinking of all these things while your heart rate is maxed out, and the other guy is also trying to kill you. Like, it's a very high stress environment. Like, it's not an easy thing to do. It's very high stress, and I love that puzzle. I love that I know if I do this, he's going to do that. How can I still beat him? Or he wants me to do this, so I'm going to do this instead, but he's going to maybe try to do this after that. That's a lot of fun to me, but it can be very stressful, and there's times when in a roll, there's nothing else in the world that is happening around me, because I'm solely focused on every detail that's happening and playing out in front of me. That's a lot of fun, but that is a lot of hard work. It's not for everybody.
Right.
And it's also stressful because jiu-jitsu will put you into uncomfortable positions. Like, we're just so used to it now because it's been our life for so long. But for a normal person walking off the street, like, it's not normal to have a trained killer mount you and be calm there. Like, that's normal for us to do it all the time. You get mounted by guys who know how to kill you and are much bigger and stronger than you. But to stay calm, it's not an easy thing to do. Like, I really like the truck. It's a very stressful position to be put in, which is why I like it, which is why I like putting people there. But if you really think about what's happening in the course of a jiu-jitsu match, like, it's a stressful fucking environment.
Like, another thing to talk about too is, I guess you would call it a learning curve, but the amount of knowledge that is available in the jiu-jitsu universe it's endless, right? It's so vast. Like, you can't, I don't even know if you can quantify the amount of techniques, because it's always evolving. Something new is always coming out. I don't know any other sport like that. And because of that, when you're starting off, it could be so overwhelming, because here you are, like, learning the bare basics, and you have like a universe of techniques, and you're not even scratching the surface. So it's a daunting task. I'm sure it's extremely overwhelming. I remember it was for me.
Yeah, when you look ahead and start to realize how much you don't know and how much there still is to learn, knowing that it might take you a decade to get good, and it might take you 2 decades to get really good. It's a steep, long learning curve, and it's not like that in a lot of other sports, because if you're a hobbyist in any other sport, you're going to get to a point where you're as good as you are and you just have fun doing it. But with jiu-jitsu, there's always more to learn, and there's more to learn about the things you already know. You just learn more details and better ways of doing things. So it's hard to wrap your head around, oh man, this is like a lot more for me to do. And another thing that is hard about jiu-jitsu, which is the hardest thing for me right now in jiu-jitsu, it takes your time. It literally takes time to train. And if you get to be like us, where I think it's safe to say we're addicted to jiu-jitsu, and that epic roll addicted rash guard is accurate. I mean, we made a fucking podcast to talk more about jiu-jitsu than we already did on top of training jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
If I could, I would train jiu-jitsu every single day of the week for 2 hours a day.
More than that.
Well, I wanted to be slightly conservative with my time, but
If I could train, if I won the lottery, I would train jiu-jitsu 2 times a day, and in the middle, I would probably, I watch jiu-jitsu videos every single day. If I'm not training, and I haven't been training for a while because Brian White hurt my back in June, so I've been tied up since June because Brian White hurt my back. Brian White hurts everybody, but he hurt my back. It was June 1st, so we're coming up on 3 months. I think I've trained 3 or 4 times in that time period. My back is finally getting better, but I've watched jiu-jitsu videos every single day. I don't even know it adds up to be hours, because that's all I watch. If you can't do something in practice, like, there's no reason that you can't sharpen yourself or, up your game in theory, by watching these videos. There's just so much shit available. It's crazy. But if I won the lottery, I would train probably 2 times a day, and I would probably watch 4 hours of videos in between, 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours. I would do jiu-jitsu all day, every day. Then Justin would not be as good as me because he would only be doing jiu-jitsu 2 hours a day.
I don't think no matter how much you train, I don't have to worry about being as good as you. But if you're addicted to jiu-jitsu, if you love jiu-jitsu, it will take your time. It will cause you stress when you can't train and you can't make enough time in the day, when you have 2 kids that don't want to go to sleep and you have to push back the recording of your podcast because they won't go to bed. If you weren't recording your podcast because you didn't love jiu-jitsu, you wouldn't have that stress in your life. So jiu-jitsu will take your time. Jiu-jitsu is hard. It will get easier in some ways, but it will always be hard in other ways. And I'm okay with that.
I'm here too. Obviously, I'm okay with it too. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also, make sure you're subscribed to the channel.
There's more of us right here that you should watch next. And if you want some exclusive bonus content, check out our member area. The link for that is below in the description. Thanks, everyone. We will catch you in the next video.